Folks who are arriving, welcome, welcome. Thank you for being here at our soil. This is day four. This is the natural farming panel. And we are so blessed to have these two gentlemen here with us today. I know you all have a lot of questions. I'm excited to get to that. But first, let's do some introductions. Chris, do you want to start off and kind of reintroduce yourself to people? Because most people know who you are. Most people are here to hear you and Steven, and they know who you are. But feel free, because there's a lot of people here. So
Hello, everyone. Happy to be here. Thanks for doing this, Matt. I mean, the level of care and work you do is wildly amazing to me. So, round of applause for you in case you didn't get it enough this week. Um, my name's Chris Trump. I am a natural farmer. I grew up farming on the Big Island of Hawaii. We farm 700 acres of macadamia nuts organically. And my introduction to natural farming was to learn it from Master Cho Han Kyu, who passed earlier this year. Um, I spent time in Korea learning it, and then my job, my task, and what really taught me natural farming was scaling it and practicing it for our 700-acre macadamia nut farm. Um, Now I travel all over the world helping farmers and teaching natural farming. And yeah, currently I am teaching classes starting 2026 on the Big Island of Hawaii and doing some other cool stuff there we'll talk about, I'm sure, in the panel. Good to see you
amazing.
guys.
Good to see you, Chris. I've never been to Hawaii. My son has been there. My parents met there. My grandparents lived there, and my great grandparents lived there, and I've never been there. So kind of feels like I got to do it at some point.
I think this year's the year, Matt.
I got to come out there and film you. That's what I got to tell my wife, right?
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no
Or
choice.
you just got to come out and bring everybody and we'll make lodging. We'll pick you up. It'll be great.
Yeah, I have to arrange it with the grandparents or my in-laws, because the
There you
four
go. There you
dogs. Steven, please introduce yourself, though many of the folks here know and love you.
Hey there, my name is Stephen Raisner. I'm the owner of a company called Potent Ponics, and my specialty has been in both the aquatic fish trade over the years, but before cannabis and plants, and then got into the aquaponics realm, got really into that, and then got into doing large scale soil facilities as well. I had a lot of experience doing a lot of this as a kid growing up. My grandparents had a 2 acre farm and did mostly kind of pre depression era farming, which is kind of what we're mostly getting back to nowadays. Post World War II, that kind of went away, and then now everyone's kind of going back to those old ways again. So a lot of the stuff, like I didn't even know you could buy pesticide until I was 12 years old because we just made our own from nightshades, right? So like this is the kind of stuff that I think we need to kind of get back to. So I've worked all around the world at Thailand, Jamaica, Canada, Colombia, all across the United States, as well as Southern Africa, which is actually where I learned a lot about IPMOs, particularly thanks to Chris, and I'm sure we'll get to that a little later on. But but yeah, so I work as a consultant for people that need compliance help or kind of fixing what's wrong with their farms. And then I also do designs for aquaponics facilities, as well as some other cool stuff in the cannabis realm involving edibles and antidotes and all kinds of other weird chemistry stuff.
I love it. Thank you for being here. In other words, these two gentlemen have so much experience and so much to share with you today. I've learned so much from you both. One of the things that we've talked about is with all at all scales, with so many different people, there's something they need to overcome to really believe and understand. For a lot of people, they hear you, they hear there's microbes, but they just can't like believe that it's actually a living thing. And this is Ray Archuleta's greatest. He said this is the number one thing holding back regenerative ag in general. And you all have worked with microbes so closely, and you work with microbes, right? Like, and how do you go through with that? How do you approach that? How does it come up, and what are the challenges that you see with the mindset around this space with the people that you're helping? Chris, do you want to jump in on this?
Yeah, that's a really, really great question. I think as an educator, understanding is the hardest thing to convey. So you can give facts, but I've seen something. I have this deep understanding of how well it works and what the implications are. That understanding is something that comes with experience, primarily. Um, One of the ways that cultures all over the world convey understanding is through stories, through storytelling. So the stories of farmers, the actual experience of other farmers, um, is the on ramp for most farmers. So the success of the neighbor is what's going to make the people next door sign up, drink the Kool Aid, whatever it is. Um, but For me, I think that is, I would agree with Ray. It's one of the major obstacles, and for education, from an education standpoint, I will make people do it, put their hands in it, see it with their eyes. We'll have a microscope session, and so in a 5 day period, they're immersed in, touch, taste, smell, but then also seeing it, in front of them in mycelium and under a microscope. That whole kind of experience really drops people into an understanding that this is a vital part of their world. It's not a alien world far away. It's their world that they interact with every day. And so, really, experiential learning is how I've approached it. And I think I've not found anything nearly as valuable for getting that into somebody. But otherwise, really, the main way I do it, and can I tell a brief story? Do we have a second to go off on this?
Yeah.
Um, I was invited. So when I started doing natural farming in my farm, the leading experts in macadamia came out and they were like, "Man, that'll never work. We're using like 1/300th of the recommended nitrogen for our orchard." And they're like, "Your trees are gonna fail." Blah blah blah. And so 3 years later, they came out, same guy and the head of the International Macadamia Symposium, the grand poobah of my industry. And they're walking the orchards and they're like, "Yeah, we've never seen trees this healthy." And so the grand poobah asked me, he's like, "Hey, would you be on the research and development board for the International Macadamia Society?" And so I was for 4 years. I joined, and we had meetings in China where we would present information. And so there's thousands of people and hundreds of PhD professors and the one non-PhD presenter. And so I'm like, how do I make beneficial microbes make sense to all these academics and farmers? And so we talked about the gut biome, and we talked about fecal microbiota transplant, and which is FMT for short. And I got up in a packed, like it was like an opera house, massive auditorium of people from all over the world. And I'm teaching about natural farming and how this is working on our farm. And I start explaining how we can have real problems when our gut biome breaks down, and how there was no cure for it for a long time until scientists developed a fecal microbiota transplant. And so this human experience, this real thing, some people have had friends that have had problems with their guts, for whatever reason, people are understanding. And I explained how we take, for an ill person, we take some fecal matter, freeze dried, and give it to them as a oral pill or as a suppository, and that re-enlivens the gut biome of the sick person. And this is a well established and internationally recognized medical procedure for reestablishing gut health through microbe reinoculation. And so now that's what I'm doing in our farm. We are taking a sick soil, sick guts of our trees and re-enlivening it through a microbiota transplant. We're just using it from a healthy forest. And so right after I finish, this really excited elderly man comes up to me and he's like, I am the scientist that invented FMT, fecal microbiota transplant, and I have never heard it talked about in this context. And he just went off. But that is typically making those connections to our human experience is how best to help people see that the microbes matter in the plant's experience, in my experience.
Got it. I have that same experience with education. A best practices you link to prior learning. So, and then they understand it's a bridge.
Yeah, it's the bridge. So we innately understand human principles, and so it is the connection to understand, complex plant and soil principles.
Absolutely. And it comes from their experience. That's what you're linking to. And that's what grounds it. It's always experience that grounds it. Wow.
Yeah, that's where understanding comes from.
So, Stephen, this conversation, folks have a problem and it's obviously a biological thing. Perhaps you're helping them out and they feel like that's woo-woo. How do you bridge these gaps?
Sure. So I've had a bunch of experience with this, particularly like the aquaponics industry is like has a phobia of putting anything in the water because they're terrified they're going to instantly kill the fish or screw the whole nitrification system up or everything else. So I had a chance to meet Chris Chumman. Was it 2017 or 2018? And then we were talking, and you had actually Chris actually, and a lot of people don't know this, did aquaponics a long time ago as well and you were telling me how it would be a good idea to try doing the LAB in it, and so we started doing that, and then suddenly all the extra silt underneath our DWC bed started to go away. It was getting broken down by the microbes. We had much less issues with fungal infections on the fish when they start to nip at each other. They don't get those secondary fungal infections from the missing scales or fin nips. We end up having, a little bit better plant production because you have vitamin B that's in the lactobacillus. That one of the byproducts that they produce is vitamin B. So we ended up having a something that we now use as standard across all aquaponic systems that I do in terms of food safety. The other cool thing we've been able to use lactobacillus for is eliminating E. coli. We've had multiple customers where they failed for non-human pathogenic E. coli, and after 14 days and 3 treatments of LABS, at 1 to 800 dosage, we were able to completely eliminate that. Now it will slightly lower your pH. Every 1 to 1,000 that you do in a hydroponic or aquaponic system, if you're dosing in a 1 to 1,000, so 1 gallon of LAB to 1,000 gallons of system volume, you will lower your pH by 0.1 to 0.2. So keep that in mind that if you are doing a treatment dosage, you will need to slightly do a slight pH up adjustment to make sure that you're not lowering your pH. When you do it at scale, especially. So that was one thing where I was like a big, holy crap, like this stuff really does help. There isn't a risk of, introducing some kind of catastrophic chain reaction. And then we started doing IMO, and then suddenly our bioavailability on our nutrients went through the roof. We were in, if you look at the total ppms when we do a 4-day brew on the fish waste, you end up with almost 80% more total ppms. It's actually in the bioavailable forms for aquaponics, specifically for the plants. So it made a huge difference dosing with liquid IMO and LAB. And that's just from the scientific standpoint. Now, I've also been in Oklahoma when we had the big floods the first year in 2019, and we were making LAB in 250 gallon IBC totes at a time. We were just getting all the milk we could from the local dairy, and then just spraying all the fields because the fields got flooded by the river, right? I don't know what kind of septoria or fusarium or who the heck knows what got washed into the fields, and we needed a way to treat it. So we did large scale LAB, sprayed the fields down, and were able to basically like clean the fields from anything that would be bad. Well, we were making huge batches of it, and on 4th of July, I told my neighbor, he's complaining that he's going to have to file for crop insurance and all this stuff, and him and Han. And I was like, here, look, like, I'll give you a gallon of this right now just to go try. But we make this stuff at a huge batch. Like, if you just want to like cover the cost of like the gasoline for us to deliver it, like, I'll go bring you a tractor load of it, like right now, like as soon as we're done eating. And he threw the gallon back at me and told me to take my hippie crap back to California, and didn't think it would work. And it was completely like, it was just like, dude, like, I'm willing to give this to you for free, like basically just help me out on the gas to get it to your property. And he wouldn't even listen, right? So, and then 2 months into this thing, all of our fields look wonderful and all that, and he comes back and he's like, well, maybe I could try it now. He came in tail between his legs, and was really like, after seeing how good the plant growth was, he was like, okay, all right, yeah, we can try it, we can try it. So that was another experience that I had with it. But then the other way, and Chris has a great example with the microbe transplants. But how I like to explain it is like, chemical ag or fertilizer or hydroponics versus traditional. Is that, think of it this way, right? You have your nutrients are like your chefs, right? And then your plants are like the customers, right? So a guy in a food truck, a chef in a food truck, can feed directly to the customer without having other people interact and have that direct one-to-one connection. But he can only do maybe like 8 customers every 10 minutes or so, or every 15 minutes, because he has to cook all the food and run the register and take the order and do all the different things. When you have microbes, it's like having like a well-staffed restaurant. You have sous chefs and prep chefs and waiters and waitresses and busboys and bartenders to make that chef extremely efficient at delivering a much better range of nutrients and food, or nutrients in this case, to the plants in a way that's more palatable to the plant. The same way that a good chef at a fine restaurant is going to do better than a guy in a food truck. All right, some food truck guys are great, don't get me wrong, but like, he kind of explains the allergy where the all the other restaurant employees are your microbes, right? And that's why they're important to making the machine run as efficiently as possible. I think that's another good analogy, and how one of the ways I like to explain it as to why the microbe portion of your garden is so important, especially to people that are really used to traditional ag.
I love that. You know, it's so similar. I ask people what happens if we put you on antibiotics for 6 months, and they go, "Oh, well, it's going to ruin my gut biome. It's going to make it so I can't digest. I'm going to feel awful." And it's like, "Well, why?" And they're like, "Well, we've got microbes inside of us." So like, okay, plants do too. And they're like, "Oh, really?" And they're like, "Yeah, they have a gut biome. So plants have their, and we're just returning it. We're just bringing those elements back. That's what like mycorrhizal fungi, it doesn't exist in nature outside of the root. There's spores, but they're waiting for a root, So I try to like frame it like we're just bringing nature back to itself. We're just bringing things that belong together back together. So one of the things that I've kind of asked everyone is what's like one of the number one things that people struggle with when they're adopting natural farming, and what would you say to them? What advice would you give?
I'll jump in on that. The natural farming, I think, is has some degree of complexity to it. There's several moving parts. There's some real learning curve and significant nuance, and the struggle is to take. I am a gardener. I am a farmer. I have this plant, animal I want to care for, and I want to use natural farming. What are my steps? How do I proceed towards that goal? And yeah, I strongly encourage people just to begin with really accessible parts of natural farming. Um, and the 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 challenge is to really understand how valuable it is. There's so much that you can do, and there's so much impact it has if you do natural farming accurately. But getting from I want to try it to accomplishing something successfully. So LAB, like I talked to Steve about for aquaponics, is a really easy entry level thing to do. And lactic acid bacteria are the analogy I use. They're the policing force of the microbiological world. They keep everything copacetic. You know, when there's a healthy amount of them, there's a balancing force that comes in. We don't spin off into huge rot, scenarios where everything. And so, yeah, I consider them a balancer, if you will. They're a facultative anaerobe, so they can kind of clean up your super, nasty. Um, Anaerobic environments, and they can also thrive in your aerobic environments. It's easy to make. It's an easy recipe. We have something called JMS, Jadal Microbial Solution. My teacher's son was like, it's got to be easier. And it's almost no fungi. But as far as you compare to, store-bought products, um, store-bought products will be kind of beat out in quality by a batch of JMS, generally speaking. And this costs 2 or 3 potatoes, a small handful of salt, and a bucket, And so um, easy entry items is what I tell people. Get yourself a little success, pour it on a plant, and be like, wow, that was gangbusters better than what I was doing before. Maybe I should take the year it might take to kind of go through this process and learn how to make good IMO. But yeah, IMO is a nuanced, tricky thing, and people struggle to achieve, real success right away. And so I strongly encourage them, start small.
I liken it to you guys being chefs. That's what I tell people. You guys are chefs, and it's not just like, oh, there's another part of gardening. It's its own thing. It's its own set of skills. It's its own processes, and I need you, yeah, yeah. And what was it? I need to tell you guys about this. So JMS salt. Potato, did you know that sauerkraut juice is being used to remediate glyphosate buildup in fields in weeks by Dr. Don Huber? And people are afraid of salt, but salt's a huge part of all, not a large part, like it's included in many recipes in natural farming, not in a large amount, but it's always there. And so it's like, and it is hugely important. And
Yeah.
these reactions, folks, like I'm convinced that when we get down to it, we're gonna find that all of these processes affect, like the lab, JMS, all affect glyphosate and reduce it. But
Oh, absolutely. Drastically reduce its present, and most importantly, its deoxygenating effect. Glyphosate's biggest problem with soil health is it deoxygenates that top few inches where the roots carry it down. It actually inhibits oxygen transfer. Um, so fermented plant juice, which is in natural farming, and JMS, they both take their origin from the juice of kimchi being found to make the gardens healthier. Everybody makes kimchi in Korea, and they're dumping out their kimchi juices, and they're like, "Oh wow, where we dump out our kimchi juices, everything's going ballistic." And so this is part of what informed these practices is the juices of kimchi. So yeah, if you want to shortcut all of this and not make anything, just pour out your kimchi and sauerkraut juices in your garden. You know,
that's
yeah.
amazing. And so much of this is full circle like that, where these scientists are doing this great thing and it's this big breakthrough, and everyone's like, wait a second. Isn't that what Chris Trump has been doing? You know, and it's true.
It,
You guys are just
it's
doing these things casually, and they've been handed down, they've been taught traditionally. There's something that was learned by practice, something that was learned by example and experience and proof. And it's so strong, but it's not in their modality. It's arriving now, but
yeah,
you guys are just living. Love it.
more of that. We'll just keep going in that direction as a whole community.
Yeah, absolutely. Steven, sorry about your mic. Jump in.
Sure. Can you just repeat the question again?
It was people starting out, what's the number one thing that they struggle
Oh,
with, and what's your advice?
I think that it can be a bit of intimidating, especially again, because a lot of people aren't used to trying to balance the microbial component. They're just told, you need part A, part B of your nutrients and stuff like that, or you need Miracle Grow or whatever. So that can be a little intimidating just in itself. But I think the biggest thing I've had is just a lot of people don't think it works or doesn't do anything. So if they have a chance to talk to someone that has had it or seen a video of it working over a time scale or a timeline, that seems to help people become more comfortable with it. The other thing too is that sometimes too getting people onto like liquid IMO, for example, having them just take it to like an IMO 2 instead of an IMO 4 for making liquid IMO. While it's not quite as good as IMO 4, it's still a hell of a lot, like Chris was saying, a hell of a lot better than almost anything you're going to get at the store, even in an IMO 2 brewed to an IMO. So I think
Wow.
that sometimes letting them start off with something that's a little easier and then easing them into the more advanced side of it, also kind of making it like 2 or 3 steps at a time. People seem to be a little bit more able to digest that rather than being like, you need to go from IMO 1 to IMO 4, and here's your like 36-step process to do that. Like it seems very hard for a lot of people that aren't used to dealing with SOPs or that or recipes, depending on what it is you're more used to. So I think that sometimes just even if it's not the full thing that you're planning on teaching them eventually, it can be easier to digest if it's in smaller chunks like that.
And so much of this, I feel, is successional learning. I have introduced a lot of people to both of you, and I encourage folks to take your courses because it's like you're going to essentially like a cooking class with Chris. You're getting your hands in there, and you're seeing the results. You're seeing a good example, which touch, smell, experience, like that you key into something you can't really describe or pass on when you're there. And then you can take that experience and go on to Potent Ponics course on aquaponics and apply it in another level, in another context. And that ecosystemic interaction is one of the greatest things about our community. We all work together and support each other. I love it. And that's really what we're doing, micro to macro.
The other
So we've got almost 90 folks here. Oh, there we go. More arriving every second. And I want to honor the folks here because I know I asked the question for a giveaway earlier. I was like, all right, guys, now who's the number one person that you want to see who you're anticipating to hear from? And your two names came up over and over and over again. So I know that there's folks that want to ask questions. So I'm going to pull up their questions now. There's some thumbs up. So folks, add that in there. Add those Chris's. Add those. I just want to know where Chris got that shirt. Says Carrie. Where'd you get that shirt, Chris?
My homie in New York made it. They are rooted New York, and yeah, embrace diversity. This is the key, guys. Yeah, rooted New York. I don't know if they're still making them, but good stuff.
I love it. I love how our community has embraced art. The mycology community did a lot of that, and now it seems like everyone's getting into it. I love it. Ask Chris about his rhino beetle trial in Hawaii. Oh wait, that's Steven asking that. Well, tell us about that. Now I'm curious. We were talking about dung beetles earlier this week. What's the rhino beetle?
The rhinoceros beetle is killing all the palm trees on Oahu. It came in probably in the pet industry or something, and so it bores into their trunks and it's wiping them out. So Hawaii will be a place without palm trees in a little bit unless there's a solution. We submitted to run a trial with the state. The state had a bunch of funding to solve this, and they did not go with our submission. Instead, they bust out the state of Hawaii a little bit, call them out, a little accountability. They used 100% of funds slated for research to pay Terminex to spray the palm trees. So, to move in a slightly more positive direction, I found a really cool composting company, biggest composting company in the state. They are very interested in helping remediate and make better this huge pest problem that's taking over. And they found out what I was doing with IPMO, which we call indigenous predatory microorganism, and they are funding a trial with the University of Hawaii. The lead researcher on rhinoceros beetle for the last 10, 15 years, the authority on it, is using my IPMO to run side-by-side trials to see what kind of efficacy we have for kill and control. And so that trial's just started. The materials are in the scientist's hands, and he's just beginning to do trials on that. And then at the same time, we're going to do some side-by-side plant production trials. So both those trials just started with the University of Hawaii system there, and we will be getting results later this year or the beginning of next year. And if the rhinoceros beetle trial goes well, there will be several more trials that start following that, state-funded trials. The state's very interested in a solution that's not a pesticide. So we are, we're doing some cool work with wild crafting entomopathogenic fungi and getting into the hands of users, not as a pesticide, but really as just bringing back nature's diversity, and definitely not calling it a pesticide ever. And so really cool things. Excited for those trials. I was in Hawaii making material for that this last month, and it went quite well. So we'll see how things go there.
Wow. Wow. So you met him. He seems like a good guy.
Yeah, we've had a couple of Zoom meetings. He is a good guy. He's knows one of my good friends in research in university system, Kunhui Wang. Dr. Kunhui Wang's a nematologist and one of my favorite researchers, just an incredible attention to detail. And so she cannot research this, as there's certain lanes when it comes to certain things. And he is the guy for rhinoceros beetle. And he's very excited about it. He also has a really keen understanding of why we don't want to isolate what microbe is killing the beetles. We actually want to just call it plant-based compost so that we can use it and not have it bogged down with EPA regulations. So
So
he's like, I get you, I know. And so we're going to not call it the wrong thing. So yeah, it was really cool.
it's so important. I mean, I read studies all the time where they're like, mycorrhizal fungi doesn't work. We prepared the field with plenty of glyphosate and then nothing attached to the roots. And I'm like, ugh. It's like they like shot themselves in the foot and say like, I can't race, you know?
Yeah,
And so they are really good people in academia,
yeah,
and a lot of people paint them all with the same brush. And it's so good to hear those names. So good to hear like your relationship with those folks, because for a lot of us, we get a little nervous, around university folks. I certainly.
100%. 100%. No, there's some there I have encountered much more like head scratching, hitting my head against the wall with like, that's how you chose to run that trial? That's what you chose to do? Like, do you not understand that you just literally made it impossible for you to get valid data out the gate? Like, you, before you even started, you can't even ask the right questions because you didn't, you know, ask questions outside of your field of expertise, and that's the key. We need to be generalists rather than specialists, so we don't arrive at a lexicon as clear as mud, right, Matt?
Yeah. And so much of my work, on the outside, I think for some people are like, you're trying to define everything. And it's like, actually, I'm trying to show that, like, in a lot of cases, you can't. And
Bigger
in
than
fact,
us.
if you try, because you could look at it. Like I unbox things so people can look at it, and I'm like, so the environment determines their morphology. So are you going to work in the environment, or are you going to chase the fact that the DNA changes faster than they can reproduce every 20 minutes?
Yeah. All of a sudden, we're back at diversity is the key.
Right, right. And then these cycling larger scale actions that we can take that have microscopic reactions. Someone just this dovetails right with a question right here, and this is such a perfect time to dive into it. They asked what functional groups are in IM. What are the main functional groups of microbes we find in IMO? It's from Rascal. You guys know Rascal Turbeville.
Yep. I love Rascal. Hey, Rascal. Um, yeah. Speaking of this, just since we're here talking, Craig, a student of mine, microbiologist in New York, in much smarter than me for sure. I want to get him on a call with you and my friend. Oh man, her name just blanked. She's a microbiology PhD. Also, I want to get us all in the room, maybe Steve, to look at. We did some DNA studies years ago now, a few years ago, and we have the data just sitting here, all printed out, beautiful. And there's, on average, 700 unique species in, these three different IMOs from three different parts in the state, about 200 fungi and 500 bacteria, et cetera, and various things in between. And just it's too big for me to kind of grasp, but it'd be really great to have just kind of a weigh in from a bunch of different perspectives and minds, so that we can kind of take away something. But really, what I took away in initially looking at that data is that the better IMO has so much going on in it, and I really couldn't even begin to answer Rascal's question because of that. It's just I don't know. Um, but yeah, I would love to share that data. I'd love to have a conversation about it so that we could get a little closer to answering that question Rascal's asked. But Steve may have more input, and I'm sure you do too, Matt.
Yes, Steve, do you want to jump in? Are you muted still?
No, there we go. I haven't had a chance to I have a mechanical mute button on here. I'm just used to muting when I'm not talking. Anyways, I've had a chance to test it much. I know that Matt and Chris both have done a heck of a lot more DNA testing on that specifically. I do know that and have used previously for plant tissue and input testing. Medicinal Genomics is a company to send stuff out to, and I think Agdia might. I'm not sure on the Agdia one, but and then I know Matt, you have resources as well for testing stuff as well. But yeah, I don't have as much of a background as you two do in terms of actual testing.
The way to do it to make it way easier is to arrange it so you go by reads. So you know how there's like toggle switches? You can switch to like alphabetical. If you switch to number of reads, it's always a hockey stick is what I find. So there's always like a Pareto distribution of like these top microbes and these functional groups. So like the bacillus, E. coli. There's millions of species of E. coli, and then there's six pathogens, and those occur in pathogenic conditions, the environment again. And so it's like knowing the specific groups of microbes is incredibly important. Knowing what you're bringing in, being specific about what you're bringing in. But with decomposition cycles that are partnering with indigenous microbes, you want the panoply of chaotic creation and this. It's really a bioreactor of DNA, a bioreactor of adaptogens, and you when we bring in mycorrhizal inoculant, we vet that, we make sure we're getting the right thing. But when you're partnering with the actual processes of decomposition on your site in nature, you got to let it go. And you can track the morphology, and luckily we have so much mycology out there. You can really see who, like we say who these things are, but the DNA may be different. We know morphologically who they are from the textbooks, but you may have a section of it that's this DNA, and you have a section of it that's that DNA, and they look the same exact thing because of the environment. So, yeah, so I think that where you're gonna, depending on how you come about this, if you look at things from a morphological perspective, you're gonna find functional groups because there's forms for these things. But when you step into DNA, what stage of IMO are we talking about? Because it's going to be different in every stage. And then there's the functional, like the ones that are active, but then there's also the history of all the DNA that's there and the reactions that have been there. It's all there, all because you're containing it. And so it's really like you have a bunch of puzzle pieces that are universal being thrown in with these guiding microbes that are Lego pieces themselves. And that's what you
And
want.
yeah, you have IMO now, which we can throw, and we punch through this expensive metagenomic analysis, process, and we have data back. But that IMO now you put it on the soil, and then you look at that 3 months from now, and you have what now is thriving with the plants you have, and what meshed well with the things that were already going on in the soil, and everything shifts in just a few months. You have what now is thriving, and it could be in the spring you're looking at it, and because of the way that the weather is reacting with the that you have one snapshot of what your soil and your microbes look like, but then you go to the middle of summer and you have a whole different way that your soil is interacting. Now in the dead of winter, while everything's dormant, you have a really different snapshot of what's alive and what's visible. And so nature's like that. We have a lot of factors, environmental factors, plant factors, and all of this affects. So I can put that IMO on, and whether you're looking at the IMO before we put it on, or you're looking at the soil 2 months later or 6 months later, it's all going to be a pretty different view. So nature is a little bit bigger than us still, thankfully.
And what's so incredible is that we all kind of arrive at a place where it matches what's in nature, and you could be using different ingredients. You could be a different part of the world. You could not be able to do IMO5, you know what I mean? But you're still able to do this, and it still transforms. It's just a testament to how powerful nature is and how powerful these processes and these microbes are. I love the kimchi story. That is the best. Let me look for some more questions here. Thank you all for being here.
The way they came up with IMO1 collections was that they used to take in Japan, they used to take their lunch to school in a little wood box, and somebody's rice in their wood box got left out in the woods, and it filled with all kinds of microbes blooming on the rice. And then they threw that in their garden, and they got rid of disease and that they had been dealing with, or their plants thrived. So they started doing that intentionally in Japan, taking that box out into the woods, into those healthy wild places with the rice in it, and then bringing back microbes for their garden. Nature taught them.
Yeah, and one of the wildest things, Dr. James White's talk, I don't know if you guys have caught it, is that bacteria go inside the nuclei of plant cells. And so these endobacteria that are inside the zygomycota, inside that hyphae that's growing on top, it's plenty of things, but the that hyphae that's growing on top, the bacteria in them, the endobacteria, that's actually going into the plant too. So the messages from the forest are going into the plant and then they're going inside the plant nuclei. He has images, he has proof that bacteria not only goes inside the cells, it goes inside the nuclei. And it's like we're just beginning to understand how deep the relationship is and how like we're literally carrying these things and the fungi is carrying it inside its body all the way and delivering it and so that the plant is carrying it inside its body all the way to deliver it to us so it's inside of our body. So much of the things that are beneficial are embodied, and that's why we are regenerative cyclers. You know what I mean? We are a part of this. We should be making good night soil and manure. So, let me. So this question is super interesting. How to best store leftover labs? Isn't it a preservative? Cool, dark, or is you put in a fridge? It's a preservative, right?
Yeah. What are you doing, Steve?
So I'm a little bit different on this. So I don't like to store labs. I've found that the efficacy for the sugar stabilized labs is not quite as good as the regular for what I'm doing. So I just
I
keep
would
a good
agree.
filter going. So I'll make my labs and then I'll take a big ladle scoop and put it in a little jar that with a lid crack so it can breathe a little, and then put it in my fridge, and then I'll just refresh that with fresh milk like once a week or whatever. I just set a little thing on my calendar on my phone, and then I can keep that in the refrigerator where it slows it down, and then I can just spin it back up whenever I want to do another batch. I can take it out, put it in, add maybe even add a pinch of sugar into the initial batch, and then I'll just spin it back up that way. And that's how I do it personally because I find that the efficacy is much better.
Yeah, I agree with Steve. If you store it and do nothing with it, even if you have it in sugar or in the fridge, 3 months and you have a massive drop in efficacy just sitting there.
Yeah. Yeah. So you're better off just, refreshing the culture once a week or every 5 to 7 days. Just give it a little fresh milk
And
and
fresh. It's not that hard.
yeah. Yeah. It's not hard to keep a tiny culture going. Same thing if you got kefir, you got like kombucha or something, you can just keep that tiny little shot glass culture going in your fridge or whatever that you can just keep as a starter.
Yeah, the water keeper grains store in the fridge really well. That's like the backup. That's always like my backup, like a jar of grains. Steven said you don't spray lab after flowering. Do you think spraying during flowering would retard fruit development? Oh, wait, you answered it. Do you want to answer it to
Yeah. So
everybody?
sure, yeah. So the issue with when I was talking in my talk, it was specifically to cannabis. So cannabis has trichome structures, which have a little mostly silica stalk with a trichome gland at the head that produces resins. So the super acidic, the low pH of the labs will actually like degrade some of those trichome heads and damage some of those trichome heads. So you can use it as an emergency in cannabis and flower. Say it's week 5 and you notice some powdery mildew and you want to treat it organically, it's perfectly safe to smoke that and treat it even up to like week 7 or 8. You're not going to harm yourself by it. But you will degrade the potency of the cannabis. Now, if you're doing tomatoes, melons, cucumbers, whatever else, peppers, that's perfectly fine. It's not going to affect any of your fruit in any kind of negative way. I mean, I wouldn't go spray the pestils, of your flowers if you're trying to get fruit sets, but otherwise, it's perfectly fine. The other thing I wanted to mention too with the IPMO is don't spray the IPMO, during bee hours. I mean, it will infect bees too. So make sure that you do it kind of near sundown, when the pollinators are pretty much in for the night, and you'll have a much better success because I have pictures in my presentation of 2 bees that we found that we had accidentally sprayed, that were mummified on the ground covered in fungi.
Yeah. To clarify, if you spray a plant and the bees come out the next morning and take pollen from the plant, they'll be fine. They clean themselves, they're great. It's more hitting them with an active stream of liquid IMO they won't be able to overcome. So,
Yep, exactly. Yeah, you can use it completely safely. Once it dries, it doesn't really affect them. It's just a matter of just don't spray them directly with it. That's all.
It's something interesting I just realized. John Kemp and a lot of these producers, they're using foliar sprays throughout, and they're doing like just like you said, you can use it throughout. It's going to be fine. But it's like an extra challenge and requirement for cannabis flowers because you can't spray. You got to dry those things down. You got to like taper off the nitrogen. It's way more challenging. Like you got to get things more right earlier on so that you don't have because you have no other safety measures.
Well, and
That's
that's one of
really
the things. That's one of the things on that point too. Is like people always are like, "Oh, we get septoria as soon as the rains come in July," and it's like, really, because when I've grown weed in the middle of rice fields in Phetchabun in Thailand, and we didn't get any kind of mold issues because we put IMO in all the soil batches. We had IMO actually physically present in there. We did IMO sprays, every other week, where we did either every week we did either IMO or IPMO every week. There was one or the other, and we had zero. We had 22,000 plants in the middle of rice fields, zero fungal issues whatsoever in Thailand, right? So if we can be in literally like 95% humidity with a plant that is very susceptible to molds and have that kind of success, that's how you set yourself up. For same thing too. The first year when I was in Oklahoma, you had what was most of the people doing? They were tilling up old cornfields, wheat fields, or pastures, which are what? Sprayed with 2D4 and all kinds of other horrible fungicides and herbicides. So the soil's completely dead. There's no fungals, anything in the soil. So how is these plants going to get any kind of secondary metabolite triggering from the roots because it doesn't know what a fungi is? It's never seen one. So how's it going to know to make secondary metabolites to defend itself? So you saw a whole bunch of farmers that had really dead fields have huge amounts of fusarium and botrytis and septoria outbreaks in their cannabis fields that first year in Oklahoma. And then you had the people doing IMO and LABS treatments to their fields and getting the fungi back into, especially IMO, getting the fungi back and stabilized or at least present, even if it wasn't, restored in any way. Just the fact that there was those microbes in the soil and that fungi in the soil triggered that secondary metabolite production in the plant so it actually could start to defend itself. It knew what a fungi was, so it could make those secondary metabolites it needs to defend itself. And I think that's like the number one thing when it comes to natural farming is like, and Chris preaches this too, and a lot of times people get a little confused in the beginning, is I know I was, is that LAB really isn't the best one to start off with. I mean, it is from an ease of creation standpoint, but in terms of what's going to help your garden the most, and I 100% agree with Chris, IMO, like even if you're just taking it to an IMO 2 just to get your feet wet, and doing a liquid IMO, ideally always take it to a 4 or 5, obviously. But if you're just getting started and it's your first time and you just want to try it out, even just that's going to be superior to everything else that you can do and purchase at a store and get yourself in. But that's what the reason why is it creates all those secondary metabolites that do that. Now in cannabis, that means terpenes and flavonoids and THC and CBD and whatever else. But in a home garden, that's flavors. You're going to get a better tasting tomato. You're going to get a better tasting lettuce. You're going to get a better tasting fruit because it's going to have those extra secondary compounds that we enjoy as humans that the plant produces in order to handle different environmental factors, be it insects or fungi or mold or temperature or whatever. Yeah, so I think that's really one of probably the single biggest key to any kind of natural farming is just going with your microbial diverse inputs. Either, if you want to go the Jadam route, you can do the microbial solution, but I really think IMO is superior to the Jadam one just because you can visually see that you have a good, clean collection versus with the Jadam where you're kind of, hoping you did it right.
Genomes for like that soil drench, and really cleaning up and getting that stuff in the soil, but it's not for foliar. You can't protect that sphylosphere life with the foliar in the
Yeah.
JMF. Not safe. And so the protocol across natural farming groups for cannabis is a once a week liquid IMO. It's really like do nothing else, and you do that, you're safe. Um, I will want to jump back a couple of topics. Um, the exclusion of LAB as you go into sugar production in all fruit crops is actually really important and talked about in natural farming protocol. We don't want to use a bunch of LAB as we approach ripeness because it will steal um, flavor. It will steal some of that sugar, complex sugar production. I forget. I did know why, and I forget now. But maybe you guys can chime in. But it's definitely one of the protocols is as you approach ripening in your crop that you do um, follow up with LAB use.
Wow. So I encountered some folks in California, mostly old timers, that were all about getting the soil just right and then doing nothing, you
Yeah,
know. And they were doing what your multi-level permanent grow bed method, Chris.
yeah,
And they were putting the IMO in there, they were doing all the layers, and they and is that the goal, to get to that
yeah,
point?
yeah. If you've prepped and you have a living system and you compost, and then really if you got that all set, you should be able to throw it in there and do almost nothing. And that's where some of the inputs come in. We have this like maintenance solution spray. You can buy it on my website if you don't know how to make it. But it's just FPJ, OHN, and vinegar. And that all it is this light nutrient that's really all you need. If you have a set bed, then you want to give it a little boost. You can spray it, kind of willy nilly once a week, and that's it. But yeah, the idea is that with those indoor living soil, deep beds, that really all you're doing is kind of composting in place after that. You make some bokashi or you got your food scraps, you mix them up with some stuff and you throw it on the surface because there's so much worm activity now and so much life that it just decomposes and becomes kind of fuels the engine. But yeah, you're doing nothing after that ideally, or at least not a whole lot.
Incredible. It's incredible. But that's regenerative. That's literally what regenerative is. I
Yeah.
love it.
Yeah, the Eden is a cannabis company. EDUN is a cannabis company down in Colorado. That for me was kind of the break-in place for me to design a whole grow system, and they've been going strong for 5 6 years now. They're the premier hash in Colorado now, and it's full CanF. It's 100% natural farming system. They have some, 4,000 plant grow, or more than that. But they had snail and slug problem coming in, and they're like, "Hey, Chris, we got these snail and slugs showing up." And they have, these massive grow rooms. They got like 10 of them, all sectioned out with walls and whatnot. I was like, yeah, just get yourself some ducks. And so now they have 6 ducks that they cycle through their different grow beds, and they eat their snails and they dig a little bit in their soil, and their ducks are part of their cannabis grow. They're mixed light indoor in Colorado.
Can I can I just add to that? I had a gentleman in Vietnam teach me this cool method for, I think it was, I can't, there's two people and I can't remember which one taught me this. I think it was my buddy in Vietnam. So if you have a lot of slugs and you're at a big outdoor scale, say I have like acres or hectares, right? You can collect a bunch of the slugs and then in traps and water traps, or physically collect them. The idea is to try to collect a bunch of live ones, right? So you're going to get a bunch of them, and then you're going to get like a big Rubbermaid tote, or a big, some kind of tote that you can fill up with, a few inches of water. Then you're going to get a couple rocks and build a little island in the middle so that, there's a moat between them and the edge, because they won't really cross the water. Then you're going to get a bunch of them and put them on there and make it kind of like a little concentration camp for the slugs. So you're going to put a bunch of plant material on there and keep feeding them and look for the sick slugs in your area, right? Put the slug in there. Eventually, you're going to find the ones that have your native nematodes that are parasitic to the slugs and the snails. You just have to find, get enough of them into a high density population on your little moat island that you have in your little prison camp, and then and get all of your slugs there. Now, once that happens, they'll ripple through, and you'll end up with this huge mass of infected ones. Once you hit critical mass and you get a couple nematodes in there, all of a sudden you'll get like a third of them start to die off all at once because the nematodes are infecting them all rampantly. Take all that, put it in a blender, dilute that to like a 1 to 100, 1 to 200, or you could even do a little, probably like a 1 to 5 or 600 if you're doing a bigger scale area, and then now you can liquid spray your nematodes back out onto the field, and they do that in Vietnam to control the stuff in the jungles and stuff, and it works really good as a way to like collect the local nematodes in a way that's scalable and doable. So it's a little bit of labor, but if it's a big problem for your garden, it is something that does work. It's a bit kooky, but it works.
Oh
Like it.
yeah, I like it a lot. Genius. Wow. So here's a question. How long can you properly store FFJ? Can you add a sugar source to refresh an old FFJ?
FFJ keeps, as long as it's not turned into alcohol, it keeps pretty indefinitely. Um, the, when it degrades is when you have it in sunlight and it starts kind of going off. But yeah, breathable lid, and if you have sufficient sugar, it should really stabilize it. Also, just a reminder, FFJ is very little used in natural farming. Mostly want to use FPJ. The enzymatic profile between those two is very different. And so FFJ is really just used in that kind of ripening stage of plants, whereas FPJ is used throughout their growth cycle.
That's excellent. I have these giant pumpkins, and I mean not giant pumpkin, giant watermelons right now, and we can't eat them all. And I'm like, these are gonna be FPJ. So I'm super excited about it. It's gonna be like and that's the thing is it's like when there's volume of something and I decide to do it, I'm excited because I know by the end of it, I'm gonna be probably pretty good at this. I'm gonna know it. I'm never gonna forget it. It's doing that I do like the little dabble of my toe in something that I don't incorporate it. I have to go all in. So this is my moment. And I'm finally on my own site, so it's gonna be I can do anything. Yeah, thanks.
Super cool.
So Josh Kennedy says is FFJs is for flower, fruit, and seedlings.
I wouldn't put it on seedlings. That's a
I don't
bit
use much.
high. Also, like what you
Right.
use for that too, like check out some of the either on my Open Nutrient project or Nigel Palmer's website. Both of us have some different fruits that we've done FPJs on and then posted the nutrient values of it too. And remember that like K and F nutrients, that's probably like one of my biggest gripes with some of the natural farming teachers is that they're all like the nutrients don't matter. The nutrients do matter. And if you actually test the different green natural farming inputs, they have a wide range of nutrients, and you can blend different, even non-traditional FPJs and FFJs into a nutrient solution that will, have a typical nutrient profile of a chemical ag product. In fact, we have a whole AI at Copyleft Cultivars, which you guys can check out. There's a link in my presentation as well. You can check it out. You get to download it for free for the free versions over on Patreon, or the paid tier if you want to pay it, help us out. And it does all the math for you based on where you are in the world, and you can even tell it to target invasive. So I think that it's like kind of a new way to kind of utilize and min max with natural farming inputs.
What's the link on that?
It's Copyleft Cultivars on Patreon. I'll post it in chat.
All right. Yeah, folks, I see so many of these questions, and I know these are questions that their courses answer. I know that they're both working on books as well. I am so excited for that. And so the education can continue. It is. there's a lot here. It's a whole world. When I talk about like EM and using selected end devices, which is what EM is, there's all these different applications, but it's kind of narrow compared to the world of natural farming. So if you like all the things I teach and everything, know that you can go deeper and discover like more things in natural farming, and it'll have a feedback loop into everything we do, as everything in nature does, as you learn. But they have incredible programs. So, Chris, tell us more where we can learn from you, both online and in person.
Really, really excited. This year, I am beginning a process to create a learning school in Hawaii. Um, it's a place where farmers can be in the winter when they can't be in the fields. And so we're going to work hard at making it really affordable. This first year, we're doing it in a beautiful property. Um, I'm leasing. We have beautiful facility, and we have classes January, February, and March. Only the January class is currently posted. And so, if you've already taken a class from me, or you know somebody that has, there's a soil smith or a teacher training the week before class. But it's an all-inclusive class. So get your plane ticket, and then the ticket is 2 meals a day, cooked on site with farm to table meals, lodging, and 5 days of intensive training and all your materials. So that's currently live on the website. I haven't advertised it at all yet, but it's going to be a limited. We're going to keep it fairly small, or really so that we can have real hands-on, a lot of teachers per student. Um, that's happening in January, February, March. Um, Definitely limited space. So if that's something you want to do, as those get posted, jump in on that. I still have online class being something that people are getting a lot of value out of. And yeah, I am making microbes available on my website this year for the first time ever. And we're going to do diverse microorganisms and some IPMO. We're going to have specific uses. Most excited about the heck yeah, use it up. I'm most excited about the work we're doing with golf courses and some of the indoor disease remediation. So I am working with microbes in Hawaii in these tropical environments to try and create something that flower production, like cut flowers and these different kind of really susceptible industries that struggle with disease can use to cure and clean their whole kind of greenhouse setup with beneficial diversity. So that's coming. A lot of fun work there. And yeah, but also feel free to say hi on Instagram and just ask your questions. I still answer all of those.
Thank you so much, Chris. I hope that maybe you make a operation manual so that they can like buy that, and I don't know.
You're not wrong. That is something I should do. Biomade.solutions. That is the website if you want to check out what I'm doing.
Thank you, Chris. And Stephen, where can we learn more from you?
Sure. You guys can find me at fishmj.com if you want the aquaponic cannabis class, aquaponicmasterclass.com if you want to take my vegetable class. I also have a IPM, thepestclass.com, which is a aquaponics and living soil pest control course. I also have the Growing with Fishes podcast if you want to learn more. I also have the Aquaponic Cannabis Conference, which is also hosted on my YouTube channel. You can check all the previous years. It's all on there for free. Matt and Chris were both speakers on that as well. We had lots of cool speakers on there. So if you're looking for other education, you can check me out on all those resources. You can also just email me at potentponics@gmail or hit me up on Instagram or wherever else you find me. I have links to all my stuff on the end of my class if you need to reach out to me personally.
Wow. Thank you all so much. I'm going to ask everyone to unmute and let folks know how much they appreciate you.
Thank you,
Ooh,
guys.
thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank
You're
you.
gonna
Right
see.
on.
Thank
Thank you very much,
you.
fellas. It was
Very
awesome
great.
today.
Thank you very
Alex,
much.
see you in
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Wednesday.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chris.
Hey, thank you.
Pleasure, guys.
All right.
You all.
Thank you.
Thanks, David.
Matt, I would love to share the trailer
Blessings.
to a documentary for Irish natural farming and everything that's happened
What'd
over
you say?
here.
That was
Talk
Yes.
about
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you for everything.
Thank you,
I've been
guys.
a little bit sick.
Hold on, I gotta do this. There we go. There we go. So tell me about the documentary.
Yeah, so big renaissance happening in Ireland. I've been working over there the last 4 years, training natural farmers. Trained a bunch of teachers to teach natural farming. Now the Irish are teaching the Irish, and it's moving quickly. So one of the things that's happening is they had a guy come in who's been doing documentaries, and so he's doing a documentary on this culture in Hawaii, I mean, in Ireland, of the land and the people being together are one, and how natural farming is this return to their roots. And so I was thinking about, like, what am I going to teach? And I started working on some stuff, and I was like, no, really, inspiration is what I want to do. And so I send you a Vimeo link, check it out. And if we can just use that, I think I'll just record you a 5 minute intro to that, and we'll use that.
Let's do it. Yeah, let's do it.
Check it out. Make sure you like it. It's in your Instagram.
Okay, I will. Thank you so much, Chris.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone.
All right. Have a great day. Man, oh man, we're so blessed. We're just so absolutely blessed. I can't wait to see that video. Can't wait to share it with you all. I love spending time with my friends, Chris Trump, Stephen Raisner. These are folks that, like when I get to go to events and conferences and they're at, it is not work. It is just like the greatest vacation, the greatest. And I'm waiting for my Celia to happen again. I'm Cassandra. If you're listening, we're all waiting. We're excited. No pressure. We understand. But we all want to get back together. So yeah, gathering in person is something special. I love teaching in person. If you've ever seen me teach in person, you can there's a difference. And I think that's the way it is for everyone. We do these videos and we do these live things, and there's another level when we're in person, and sometimes also in small group settings. So if you're on the fence about going to Hawaii, now's the time to talk to your spouse, your partner, and figure this out so that you're there in person. I love it. In other words, I'm gonna have to figure this I have to talk to her. Right. The deal would probably be she'd have to come with me, and then I would be in the class and she'd be on a beach or something like that. That's usually how these things work. Thank you guys for being here. We have some giveaways to do, folks. Thank you for hanging out. I'm really excited. I'd be doing a giveaway of this, but I need it. I got some more left. We've got a hat to give away. We've got Kelpie Wilson's biochar handbook to give away. I've got I've got I've got a shirt to give away, and it's your choice of what shirt, like what size. And the goodie bag, I'm gonna give away the goodie bag, and it has the grow gauge from Ryan Noss, regrow with soil CPR, and the directions on how to use it, everything. But first, we're gonna give away the soil light. This is the soil light. It is a light that attaches. You can see it kind of flare on and off above the slide on a microscope. So this is only for the microscope users. My microscope folk talking to you, this first question. And if you have an I4, you can attach it to the back. And so you can bring that neck around and just put it on each time. I'm gonna upgrade to that. This is this is for if you don't you get this version if you don't have an I4. It attaches like there, but then this is the upgrade if you have an I4 microscope, which is the one that has the epifluorescence, so you can see mycorrhizal fungi, phosphate, and many other things. Chlorophyll in algae then, right, turns blood red. So you can instantly see chlorophyll. I mean, you can instantly see chlorophyll, but you can instantly see algae when you're looking at, I don't know, like sugarcane. You'll find algae in the sap and it's green, and you're like, what is this? And you flip on, and then you can see that it's actually algae because it turns blood red. So it's very, very useful. But this unit is the unit I use, and this machine they created because I started doing manual lighting with side lighting on the side, and I got images that were the top of the root, the surface of the root, and then I got to a certain angle and it conducted light. And I was like, whoa, roots are like fiber optic cables. And then I typed into the internet and stem piped light was the study. It was out for a few years. I just discovered it after doing this. And plants are conducting that light down into the ground. And so they are beacons of light in the soil. And the soil, when you look at the sand in the soil, it looks like giant pieces of broken glass. So they conduct the light. So they're these like beacons of light that are refracting through like all the soil, and the microbes see that in the distance and are attracted to it. This is probably why bacteria can use this little flashes of light. We think to communicate, maybe we don't really know yet, but light is so important. And so I was playing around making discoveries, and then they decided to make an invention so that you could do it. And I'm not going to be holding it constantly and having my trembling arm after a few minutes of trying to videotape. This is easier. So this is a $200 device. My students, in the microscopy course in regenerative soil, they get 37% discount for all of 2025. After that, I don't know. But you can get that if you already are in the course. Some of you can get it 37% off. But today I'm giving it away. So for my microscope students, what's something new that you're gonna want to look at? What's something that you're gonna want, like, because of today's talks, because of all these discussions we're having, what's something now that you want to look at under the microscope that maybe it's just sitting there and you haven't looked at it under the microscope. Maybe you got to brew it up to look at it under the microscope. But what's something that you want to take a gander at? Jacob Nolan says kimchi juice. I am 100% in support of that. Yes, Jacob. Yes, you got the lesson. I love it. I love it. And that's the thing. It's like looking at what works, looking at examples of like what's safe, it's edible. You know what I mean? It's so important. It's so important. And that's part of the reason why all these things are guided so well. The biology is being guided because of the selections and that experience. So, Jacob, I'm going to send this to you. You won. You're the first one that I chose the first answer the entire conference. It was because it was so good. Kimchi juice. I'm never gonna forget that. That was like, I think that was the highlight for me. So I'm gonna send this to you, Jacob. Message me at mattpowersoil@gmail.com and I will send it. Well, I'll connect you to LW Scientific and they'll mail it to you. Thank you for being here. Congratulations. Frank says my vermicompost. Yes. Carol says, look at the kimchi. Go amend, rascals. Woo! Meanwhile, there's someone named Rascal here. So funny. That probably happens all the time to Rascal. It's so funny. I am always challenging with aridity and topography here, but I want to break through into using and looking after it. Yeah, here in Texas, I really feel like I'm going to have to create just some like ultimate habitat. Like I'm gonna create microclimates, like hard, like manufactured permaculture habitat to get the life and biology up. And then that will be the nexus on the whole system. It's like I need a bioreactor throughout the year, and things just get zapped, here in August and September, like right now. The grass is all dying because there's been no rain and it's just so hot, so desiccating. So I totally get it. But that's, permaculture, create that habitat. And Chris probably wants to say something. Chris, do you want to say something?
Just for your bioreactor, make yourself a composting toilet. Um, if just dig it outside, put a hole in the ground, IMO, throw it in, food scraps, throw it in. At the end of the year, bury in some wood chips, and come back to it a few months later. You're ready to go with a place to pull wild activity from. Especially if you're staying off the pills and antibiotics, you're going to create a really healthy environment for things, just like animal pens do when you have healthy microbes there.
I love that. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, it's all about that creating that habitat. And it's funny because the first compost I ever did were always pit compost because I was copying my wife's grandmother because we lived on on her property. And that in the most arid climate, I put a lid on it, but I lifted it off the ground. So I basically did the raised bed thing. So I had that like, the wooden slats all the way around four corners on top of the pit and then a lid. And that separation of air was important. That darkness was important. It breathed. It wasn't sealed. It wasn't like on a hinge or something like that. Uh, it probably looked, you know, like something that my wife hated. Woo! The whole thing where he's like a slug concentration camp, like I'm pretty sure if I tried to do that, I would get like, what is this? This is awful. What is this? You're killing things. Ah! It's okay. Which is why there's areas, habitat, microclimates, hidden fertile areas where we will be doing this. I just need to create it. I've got kind of a clean slate here right now. Though we do have a loquat tree, and I've been dreaming of having a loquat tree ever since I was, in San Diego, and working at the World Beach Center, and they have, 20-foot, 30-foot loquats. And so yeah, I've been longing for. All right. So, what's one new thing that you learned today in this live panel? Because I got a lot of giveaways to do, so I got to bind it to that, and then we'll go to the whole day. The whole idea of slug trapping, little island concentration, and the usage of outcome to treat infestation. Wow, says Laura. Yeah, it is like unto IPMO to me. Just like, I mean, I tell people like they've got diseased leaves and they've got pathogens. Take that and digest that. And they're like, oh, that's like a disease IPMO is what someone said. And I was like, well, if it gets consumed by it, the thing that consumed it is still there. So yeah. And it's like a universal rule, and it just plays out just every time. And it's different every time. It's different with the thing you feed it. It's different with the time of year. It's different with the your climate, your bioregion. And that's what I mean. You want it to be this like bioreactor of options and adaptogens and possibilities so that you put it in there and then it keys properly to your climate and plant and situation and then continue cycling. It's like a skeleton key. IMO is like a skeleton key. And that's what's so powerful about it, and good compost can be as well. Um, it's they're different though. You could be doing compost this whole time for 10 years, and then you start doing IMO or labs and see huge changes. So this is a world that, I'm always learning from. And what's also really great about the natural farming world is there's a lot of like just there's an impetus on doing it and living it and sharing it. And my my older boy would be like we talk about hard work ethic, we talk about persistence all the time. There's a lot of that, like, for lack of a better word, like a blue collar aspect to it, where there's like a pride, you have craft, you have your honor, your reputation, you have your word, you have your results. And there's something so powerful about that. And I know perhaps that's not a great word, to describe it, but I love that. I love that you guys have that. It's really inspiring. And mycology kind of has something similar, but they're finding the mushroom, they're like, ah. It's different. You watch Chris Trump work, it's a little different. He works, you know what I mean? He is out there pushing, he's out there working, and that's really, a big part of it. And if you can't do all the labor, that's why it's so incredibly awesome to have folks in your bioregion who are chefs and wizards in natural farming that can provide these things, or you can get it from BioMay, from Chris. And with some of these new tests that are coming out, Sensine, Bionutrient Meter, John Kemp's meter, the Hannah Iris Spectre Photometer, all these kind of options that allow us to really dial it in, you're going to be able to have things, you're going to be able to present your problem, and that wizard chef, is going to be like, oh, okay, well, the ppm is that, that's the ppm is that, that's the ppm is that. I'm going to ask, the AI that Stephen Raisner's been working on, and then it has the calculations, and you're like, okay, 2 ounces of that, 1 ounce of that, 3 ounces of that. I'm going to put that with a maintenance solution here, and then, you know what I mean? We're so close to a completely new level of expression and application in natural farming. But that and like I said, I'm not against being specific. I rely on being specific with the things that we're bringing in and adding into our system. But when you're doing a decomposition cycle that's guided like IMO or really good compost or Johnson Sioux, there's like a flywheel of genetic selection going on, and then it's filling up with all the dead bodies of the microbes which have DNA. So you have this like history of optionality built into it as well, and it is a bioreactor of optionality. So very different than a specific inoculant that's going to partner with your plant and stay in there, and you'll be able to test for it and see it every single year, like mycorrhizal fungi. And there are overlaps with endophytes, no doubt. There's labs over here, there's labs in the EM1, right? There's overlaps, but they're different. EM1 are there saprophytes that are endophytes, right? They go into the plant, and they also stimulate all these other processes within the plant, specifically like the carbon and sugar cycles and digestion, essentially, in the plant through their photosynthetic, like, products. They got to be able to fully digest and make long chain sugars. That's aided not just by the minerals plant health pyramid, right, with John Kemp, but those EM microbes. And it is this recognition that, like, we want to be really specific because there's specific things that people are selling that are bad. And there are things that to watch out for. We can see with the microscope, we can protect ourselves, we can select, protect, and preserve and guide. It's incredible. But we also want that pure, open, possibility machine. And that's what, a lot of these they're bioreactors that we're creating are creating. They're they're filled with old DNA. I mean, think about it. It's made of all these former living things. Well, what is that organic matter made of? It's made of DNA. So you're giving it all this potential, and then the microbes are loaded up with food because they've just been eating for generations. They're like, we are huge and full and happy, and so they're dividing really fast, and then they get taken into the plant, and then, as you learn with Dr. James White, they turn into protoplasts. They speed up their rate of reproduction. So they start budding like crazy, like boop, 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 boop. Not 20 minutes. We're talking about seconds. So inside the plant, there's a completely different behavior. If you haven't watched that video, please watch that video. I love it. I love it. I know I'm going on tangents. I'm going to be spending the next whole week just looking up at these acronyms I wrote down, then rewatch this panel again. This Carrie. Carrie, thank you for being here. I want to help with that. My role in so much of this is I'm a facilitator. I introduce things and I organize things around the first principles. So I show like how these things are working for all these different people, and I honor them and show, with their permission, all their recipes. And now maybe not all the recipes, but all these recipes are from people, who have pioneered these things and then shared them with the world, and many of them are sharing directly through me. And so it's an incredible honor to be able to showcase these folks. And my book, Regenerative Soil, is one of those manifestations of me doing that. This conference is another manifestation of me doing that. And so, Carrie, I want you to write me at mattpowerssoil@gmail.com, and I'm going to send you a $75 book, Regenerative Soil, the second edition. Chris Trump is in there. And these books wouldn't be possible without amazing people involved. John Kempf, Chris Trump, Stephen Raisner, Dr. Olivia Huson, Dr. James White. Dr. Olivia Huson would be here. He just needed this time of year. We're going to aim for our future for Olivia to join us. We're still in contact. I mean, he's he's the guy behind this. There's an inventor who invented it, but they were picking all of Olivier's brain to make it happen, you know? So we're all connected. We're all doing different parts in different ways, and it's an ecosystem. So you have some people doing these specific inoculants over here, and then you have, natural farming doing all this over here, and you have compost here, and we're all doing different things in different ways. And just like he said, you could do a compost pile, add in Bokashi, right, EM, and then he was like, oh, and then add an IMO1. And I know a lot of people be, get like really strict, become acolytes of a certain person or a method. But here are these guys, hear how innovative they are. They're innovating, creating, and pushing as they keep an eye on that past, as they keep an eye on what really works, what's time honored. And that linkage, that's humility, but that's also growth. And so I just love Stephen. I love Chris. They are absolute wonderful people. And I'm just really, really grateful to have them in my life. What's wild is my students told me about Stephen Raisner for years, and then we finally met, and we were like instantly. It was a little bit like without like the beginning part of Step Brothers, like we're like, did we just become best friends? Like that happened within 5 minutes. And then we like stayed up way too late. It was like a sleepover. It was a lot of fun. But that's the that's kind of how it is. So many of us meet each other in this community, and we get really excited because, there's not many people to talk to about all this stuff. My book, Regenerative Soil, was kind of a first of its kind. Regenerative Soil Microscopy was definitely the first of its kind. And it's this is an important community. It's smaller than you think. I know there's a lot of people here. There's tens of thousands of people here at Our Soil, which is again incredibly humbling and exciting. But when you get to practicing and taking action, you'll find that there's room for folks to just jump in. Look at Maurice. Maurice, a year and a half ago, wasn't doing any of this. He learned gardening and microscopy at the same time. He took dead sand and made soil like in 3 months, right? He's doing natural farming. He's doing bokashi and EM. And he is hyper passionate and he's looking at it all under the microscope, documenting every step. And the community is so excited for him and with him. And that's the beauty of this community is you really can do good things and be honored and recognized for it. And the world isn't like that in many places. And you have people from other industries come into this one and be like, everyone's really nice. I met the person that's supposed to be my competition and we're gonna have dinner tonight. They're very nice. I can't believe it. I'm so happy. And yeah, it's wonderful. It's the way things should be, and I suspect there's a little bit of an extra layer to things when you're at Chris Trump's thing and you're putting your hands in it, you're inoculating yourself. And 3 days into it, your microbiome is actually fundamentally changed. And and part of the recognition I hazard to theorize is that your biome, because you have microbes on your skin, and 60% of what goes on your skin goes in, that are sensors. And so you go and feel Chris Trump's or Stephen Raisner's IMO3 or IMO5, and you key into something that is different. This is why I ask everyone to take action because I know when you take action, the learning comes to life. The authenticity of that experience is undeniable. So thank you for being here. Eric Kraus says how incredible IMOs are for solving problems. Thank you for being here, Eric. Eric, I want to send you a t-shirt. Send me your size at mattpowersoil@gmail.com. Thank you for being here. Cage, I saw your email. Thank you so much. I'm going to ship everything out after. I've got all your things over there. I'm just still like doing the replay dance and still uploading some videos from certain speakers. And it's worth it. The chaos, I every time the chaos, the craziness of the event, me doing all the things, it's worth it. And I love it. I love it. We're gonna be able to see Chris Trump's Ireland documentary, Natural Farming in Ireland. This is amazing. I've increasingly had more students over in Ireland as well. It's probably due to Chris Trump. But that's how it works. We're all synergizing and we're all helping each other just by word of mouth, just by what we're doing, by just who we are. So I'm just incredibly excited. I'm thinking of you, Kevin. And yeah, I mean, I was an Irish studies minor. I've obsessed about Ireland, two islands, Ireland and Hawaii, right? I didn't get to go to the islands, but someday I will. I can't go without my wife. I will be. I need to stay married. So I gotta bring her with me. Uh, she probably would never forgive me if it was. She would of course be okay, but that would be too sad. She'd be too sad. So I'd have to bring her with me if I went to Ireland. Um, but yeah, no, no, I'm completely enamored with Irish culture, Irish history, and I'm willing to argue about it. They're the best writers in the world. The Russians, they're just a little bit too depressed, a little bit too depressed. And yes, I know there's so much tragedy and sadness in Irish, but there's like some like bittersweetness to it. Like it's like that tragedy that you watch as the movie and you're like, oh, you know, with with the Russians, it's like, ooh, it's a little rough. So I love Irish writing. So yeah, no, I would go and then I would probably go to different places, Belfast, and got to go to those places like Karen Carson wrote, Belfast Confetti, and big part of who I am. I read that stuff every morning. So yeah, no, I would love that if I could watch that and share that with everyone. So thank you, Chris. I know it without even seeing it, it's going to be amazing. Richard says timing of lab application with cannabis production. Yes, Richard, I'm going to send you a goodie bag, some biofertilizers in it, some potential cover crops for your cannabis production, you know? And yeah, so I'm going to send you those. Message me, Richard, at mattpowersoil@gmail.com. Rascal says bacteria enter the nuclei of plants. Yeah. Watch Dr. James White. I was in the room. You'll see at the end of it that I'm in the room. But it just starts off as he's presenting the second part of his series. So microbial endophytes is the series. Last year he did its significance in permaculture. This year it says significance in agriculture, and it will blow your mind because you can see these things. Yeah, he gets better every time he presents. And that's the sign of a real teacher, craftsman. That's what the whole like blue collar thing is really comes down to like that pride in craft. I love it. I have that strongly around writing. That's like my thing. So the FFJ can store indefinitely if stored properly, says Jason. Uh, Gotta learn more about KNF, says Lydia. Yes. Yes, it's a journey. And like they said, it's not just the recipes. The recipes are in regenerative soil. All of it's in there, as well as the timing, the recipes for different stages of growth. It's all there. Like Chris is like that. He's generous. So that's always been part of my book, but at the same time, I'm always telling people he's a chef. You got to go take cooking classes. You got to be there. The guy, the chef has to go around, the lady or the guy, and then dip mm, more salt. What did you do? Right. I took French cooking classes, and there was a few times where it was like, okay, what did you do wrong? And that's just normal. We got, being there, having a lab, having, what I mean, that those lab hours, right, together is so essential. The biochar handbook would be very handy to have as my new project. Make your own biochar. Canada posted on strike now, so I don't know where to get it. Oof. Yeah, I'm so sorry. Yeah, Canada. So sorry for all you folks. Um, so many reasons why. Uh, though I'm sorry for a lot of people. There's a lot of things that need to get better. Oh yeah, reach out to folks. Someone says anyone in Alabama in the chat, reach out to folks, figure out where folks are from, because you might find a neighbor here. You might find a collaborator. Tony says IPMO for rhino beetles. Yes. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for being part of this community. Um, we did the hat, we did the goodie bag, we did the t-shirt. We got to do the book. Tony, do you have the biochar handbook? Tony is at almost every single one of these lives, guys. Do you have it? How about a hat? Well, I only have one more for tomorrow. I'm gonna have to buy more. That's too funny. So let me know whenever. Um, got to start selling those hats.
They
Okay, they're
want masks.
what? What, Chris?
Want Matt sweaty? You want to smell the good bottom of the of the items here.
Oh man, you're breaking up so much. I couldn't understand it. Did anyone interpret that?
They want
So
this
you want me to?
they want the sweaty hat. Give them the sweaty hat.
Oh my gosh, they were. Ah. All right, I am going to. I'll order more today, um, and I'll figure that whole thing out. Because the thing is, it's like I gotta like have a packaging too, so I don't crush them. That's why I didn't buy them last night, but I thought about it. Oh my gosh. Lydia, you want the handbook? Lydia, I will send you the biochar handbook. Email me at mattpowersoil@gmail.com and I will look into I will buy more hats and then I'll look into what to price them and everything with shipping and everything. They are very, very nice hats. And I'll do it. Okay. Everyone's asked every single live, so we'll make it happen. I really appreciate that. That's such a great response. More hats, says Jacob. I love it. All right, let's do it. All right, I will do that. I appreciate you all being part of this community. I will go order some hats and then set up a place for people to buy them. And I'll put that as an option right at the top of the course or conference. I appreciate you all being here and being part of this community. This is just the beginning. We're planting seeds here. So many people are just like the study just started on the rhino beetle. Chris Trump is presenting to, all these people. We are at a cusp moment in history and things are shifting and we're getting healthier. We're the wisdom is cycling, experience is cycling, and it's generating as we gather together and commune around these ideas that we care so much about. We create common sense. And as that common sense spreads, unity, trust, verification, replication, and results spread. And those results, we know what they do. Healthy soil, and healthy soil creates healthy plants, which create healthy animals and people. Thank you so much for being, thank you so much for being part of our Soil 2025. Huge thank you to our speakers. Huge thank you to our panelists. And a huge thank you to our sponsors, Grow With LLC, LW Scientific, Terraganics, Natural Ecosystem Restoration, Acres, USA, Huasi Products, Sustainable Growing Solutions, Green Cover Seed, Sensing the Nutriscope, Myco Max, Squid Juice, Proven Proteins, Build a Soil, Catalyst Bioamendments, the Microbiometer, and Fungi Elevate Ag and Fungi Perfecti. These folks have made it possible to reach so many more people than I would have been able to. These folks have provided amazing goodies and giveaways, such that, I can add to it and order bunches of t-shirts so that you guys have fun goodie bags. I started off with the goodie bags without t-shirts, and I was just going to raffle off a couple t-shirts. And then I made the hats as just to see if the hat would look good. And then the hats arrived, and I ordered five more because I was like, I'll do them as daily giveaways. And then I realized, I was like, you know what? I'm going to go all in. I've got all these amazing sponsors. I'm going to go all in. And I ordered a lot of t-shirts. So the t-shirts are part of the goodie bag when you sign up for the deep dive, and you get 30% off Regenerative Soil, the online course, the 20-week online course that starts November 3rd. So less than a month away. And it is also a raffle that you get entered in for that course or the microscopy course. So it could be either, and then you get your choice of regenerative soil microscopy, the hardcover book, because I know many of you already have regenerative soil. I know that because you guys buy them at a rate of 3 to 5 a day. It is wild. So I really appreciate you all, and I wouldn't be here, wouldn't be able to do all these fun things without the support, the excitement, and you all being here, you all attending, and being part of this. So I thank you for being part of this community. I thank you for being part of this movement and taking action in your own lives that is regenerative. I'm Matt Powers. Grow abundantly, learn daily, and live regeneratively. And I will see you guys tomorrow for the final day. Have a wonderful night and enjoy.
Great night, everybody.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
Christy.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you, Matt.
Good night.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank
you, Matt. Thank you, everybody.
Appreciate
Peace
everyone.
out.
Thanks,
Man,
y'all. Thanks,
Matt.
Matt.
Thanks.
Have a good night, everyone.